everywhere. GBS.
We are living in a world where a lot of commotion is happening. Catastrophes, coups and disasters, not forgetting the massive waves of power change and elections, just to mention a few. And with all these premeditated narratives, one needs to seek a place of peace and tranquility. GBS Ambassador will be here to help you take away the noise and the misinterpretation that seek to pull us apart, giving you hope, happiness, and a pure mindset across Africa and the world at large. Good afternoon. This is the Ambassador, and I'm your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau. Now, as we go to the start, Russian military trainers arrived in Niger, that is on Wednesday, amidst the demonstration of Niger against the foreign forces. And Sudan marked 1 year into war. We are talking of 12 months, with more than 10 million Sudanese children exposed to war and into war zones. And on Iran, it launched its retaliatory strikes on Israel, as it had promised earlier when the consulate was attacked. And moving on, the European Union lawmakers who on Wednesday approved a major revamp on the bloc's migration laws, making asylum even harder. We have this and more lined up for you in the Ambassador. May you stay tuned with us. And as we go to the start, hundreds of demonstrators took part in a protest against the presence of the foreign forces in Niger, including the armed forces of the United States, which has a military base in the north of the country. The demonstrators gathered in the center of the capital city of Niamey at the call of a civil city organization close to Niger ruling military junta, where until recently, Washington had considered Niger as a key partner and an ally in a region shaped by the attempted coups in the recent years. It is worth noting that 2 Russian trainers were filmed in the front of the plane wearing a military uniform, caps and face covering through the plane that arrived in Niger on Wednesday night, carrying military supplies, alleged to help the Niger to improve the air defenses. The arrival of the Russian forces further complicated the situation for the U.S. troops and the diplomatic personnel stationed in Niger, raising questions about the future of the joint counter-insurgency operations.
We have called for the departure of the Americans and all foreign forces from Niger, and the junta has taken our concerns into account. We've come to support and reaffirm our support for the CNSP in relation to the decision taken. I do not think we should be the victims of this threat, and if this continues today, it means we have to reshuffle the cards. We're going to question certain agreements, because if the agreement doesn't benefit the people of Niger, I think we have to break it and suspend it. Russians will be here as part of a win-win cooperation, whereas the Americans, as we've seen, have been here for how many years? Well, as insecurity weakened, I'd say not, whereas with Russians, we've just recently seen that things are moving forward.
We are here to train the army of Niger on how to use the military material we have brought. It is specialized military material. We're here to develop a military cooperation between Russia.
And in Sudan, a harrowing report from Save the Children shed light on the dire situation faced by over 10 million Sudanese children living in active war zones, according to the latest analysis by the Armed Conflict Location and the Event Data Project. Half of the Sudanese children have been in 5 kilometers of the conflict zone, facing the constant threat of gunfire, shelling and other forms of violence. According to the scale of the crisis that was staggering, with 60% increase in the number of children exposed to violence since the onset of the conflict, with many of them enduring unimaginable suffering, witnessing death. Here is more report on the same. More than 10 million children in Sudan have been in an active war zone and less than 5 kilometers away from the gunfire, shelling, and other deadly violence over the past year of war, according to the Save the Children report. Analysis by the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project on behalf of the Charity Fund found that 1 in 2 children in Sudan are currently or have been within 5 kilometers of the front lines of the conflict.
The fighting was really tough. We never imagined that we would flee Sudan. I came to Egypt in November last year with my grandparents, and my brother, he remained in South Sudan. We fled there first, then came to Egypt. I now live with my mother. Today I came to school, studied, and that's it. I want to become a doctor, to help people and treat those in need.
This is a 60% increase from the already 6.6 million children exposed to violence in the first month of fighting, and states how the conflict has continued to increase in scale and scope across the country.
Another almost 2 million have gone over the borders and outside the region, which also has a destabilizing effect on the neighboring countries. The food security situation is our biggest concern right now.
The precarious conditions in the country do not just concern deaths and famine. Experts have also highlighted the rising spate of gender-based violence and other abuses.
Atrocities, human rights abuses, breaches of international humanitarian law, gender-based violence is rampant. These are the hallmarks of this conflict, and as you mentioned, we've seen them before in Sudan. What's different, I think, is a bit of the apathy from the international community to intervene and to bring pressure on the parties to come to a ceasefire.
Many of the children have witnessed or suffered devastating injury, death, displacement, psychological harm, and the destruction of their homes and communities. 16-year-old Juman is one of the 4 million Sudanese children estimated to have been displaced internally and across borders since the fighting broke between the army and the paramilitary rapid forces.
My time in Sudan was really good. I had my brother and some freedom, but here I only stay at home. We can only hope for God's help. I only cook when I'm at home. There were lots of challenges when I came to Egypt. I didn't believe I would go to school. We need books. We hardly found a home because rent is expensive. We have lots of needs. We need bedding and things to use at home. We don't have much.
We know we have the wherewithal to do something about it if we were given both the resources and the access, and yet we don't have them. This is not going to be a story that many Sudanese are going to want to tell their children, nor should it be something that the world wants to recount.
She fled Sudan with her family in November last year and now lives with her mother in the Egyptian capital, Cairo, and studies at a school for the refugees, supported by Save the Children. And despite the challenges, she is one of the lucky ones. Millions of children in Sudan have been unable to attend school over the past year and lack adequate food, with thousands being at the risk of death from diseases.
The school supports refugee children from Sudan, South Sudan, Uganda, and Kenya.
We are talking of 12 months. The war between in Sudan, and we wish they could find a solution the soonest. That is 1 year, you are talking about 12 months. Now, moving on to Iran. The Iranian military launched a barrage of attack drones and missiles towards Israel late on Saturday, according to the Israeli Defense Forces, that is the IDF, where approximately 99% of the incoming threats were intercepted by the defense systems, marking a significant series of escalation in the tensions between the two nations. Daniel Hagari, the spokesperson of the Israeli military, stated that Iran fired a total of 300 drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles, majority of which were intercepted by the outside of the Israeli borders. Condemnation of the Iran's actions have been swift, with the United Nations chief and the several countries, including France, Britain, and Germany, urging Iran to halt escalating the situation. Let's check more on the same.
We appreciate the US standing by Israel's side as well as the support of Great Britain, France, and many other countries. I have set a clear principle: whoever strikes us, we will strike them.
This is just a more pull on the attack that had happened on the consulate. We hope that they find a solution. Now let's move to Togo. In Togo, a parliamentary and a regional election has been delayed once again, through the new date set for the polls being on April 29th. The decision comes after a series of postponements stemming down from a highly contentious and constitutional reform, following a cabinet meeting on Tuesday as the Togolese government announced the rescheduling of the elections, which were initially slated for April 13th before being pushed to April 29th. Togo has rescheduled the parliamentary and the regional elections for April 29th. The announcement was made on Tuesday, April 9th, after a cabinet meeting, as elections were initially scheduled on April 13th, before being postponed to April 20th. Togo's parliament voted in late March to transition the nation from a presidential to a parliamentary system.
This was an opportunity for us to explain the advantages and disadvantages of both systems. We pointed out the advantage of a parliamentary system. Power will no longer be concentrated in the hands of the President of the Republic.
We hope that this is a very good thing that we can try out. The National Assembly must do its utmost to ensure that this revision does not damage the climate of peace that we have been experiencing for some time in our country.
In early April, President Faure Nasibe met members of the Bureau of the National Assembly and urged them to take into account all contributions susceptible to enrich the Constitution. The National Assembly Bureau therefore expressed the need for more consultations over the reform, which led to a new postponement.
We will accept neither today nor tomorrow. We will fight because in the end, you can't play around with the destiny of a country. You can't have fun like that. The country is already on its knees. The country is badly governed.
The proposed constitution, which was passed on March 25th, granted the parliament the power to choose the president, doing away with direct elections. And instead of doing a renewable 5-year term, the proposed bill restricts the power of the future presidents and introduces a 1-term limit.
The challenge is simple: to confirm the confidence support of the Togolese people in everything that we are doing, but at the same time to say to the Togolese people we will listen to them and we will act to improve and accelerate everything we've done so far.
The reform hands over a greater power to a figure similar to that of a prime minister, officially called the president of the Council of Ministers. This individual will either be the leader of the party which secures the majority during the legislative elections or the leader of the winning coalition of parties. The government stated on Tuesday a planned 3-day protest this week over the arrest of opposition figures and new legislation scrapping president elections was illegal, a move that heightened tensions in the West African nation that has been ruled by the same family for almost 60 years.
We are here with serenity because we know that we are going to fight them. We would not let an adept of the permanent power grab impose his vision.
There seems to be a lot of political upheavals. First, Togo delays the elections and Mali bans its political activities. And that story takes us now to Mali. Let's check what happened. And in Mali, political tensions escalated on Wednesday evening as the government issued a decree banning all political activities, driving the nation in a state of political upheaval once again. The government led by the ruling army junta issued a decree banning all political party activities through an announcement made by the government spokesperson, that is Abdoulaye Maiga, on state television, hence sending shockwaves across the nation. Here is more on the same. Malian authorities on Wednesday issued a decree banning political party activities amidst calls on the ruling army junta to organize elections. The announcement was made by the government spokesperson on state television on Wednesday evening, Abdoulaye Maiga, stating that the ban on political activities was made in the interest of maintaining public order.
Press House, an umbrella organization that represents journalists in Mali, issued a stern rebuttal of the order and called on journalists to continue to report on politics in the country.
The statement did not specify any threats to the public order emanating from political parties, and there was no indication on when this suspension would be lifted. Mali has been under army rule since August 2020. Last September, the junta indicated that it would renege on a promise to organize elections meant to bring back civilian rule this past February, citing technical reasons. But so far, no new election promises have been made. After the March transition deadline passed without a vote, many political parties and civil society organizations ended up reacting by demanding elections. And that international news brings us to our first break. There's more coming up for you. We'll talk about the EU Parliament and the new approved migration asylum policies. We'll also talk about the Moderna, which has put Kenya plant plans that is on hold. We'll see why. And the climate seeds that have brought hope for the Kenyans' agricultural future. We'll also address the mental hardship in Nigeria. What are the causes? And we'll also to get to see how to fix your fatigue. We have this and more lined up for you. May you stay tuned with us.
So through the four gospel books, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, John, we can know the heart of Jesus in depth.
그리고 우리가 속히 느끼는 그 예수님을 성경을 느낄 수 있어서 너무 감사합니다.
And the Jesus that we can feel him through the scriptures, and I'm very thankful about that. Jesus Christ came to this earth for our sins.
지셨고,
he carried our sins.
십자가에 못 박혀 죽어 죄의 형벌을 당하셨고,
and he was crucified, and he received the punishment for sins.
무덤에 들어가셨다가,
and he was put into the tomb.
사흘 만에 부활하셨습니다.
and resurrected in 3 days.
이것이 우리가 말하는 복음입니다.
This is the gospel that we speak.
예수님께 우리 죄를 위해 죽으신 이야기.
About how Jesus died for our sins. The purpose of Jesus being crucified.
우리 죄를 담당하기 위하여 십자가에 못 박혀 죽으셨습니다.
He was crucified to pay for our sins.
예수 십자가에 못 박혀 죽으심으로 우리 죄가 분명히 씻어졌는데.
And through Jesus being crucified, clearly our sins have been washed clean.
참 안타깝게도 많은 사람은 여전히 죄인이라고 말합니다.
However, unfortunately, many people still say that they are sinners.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back. You are still watching The Ambassador, GBS Global News, and we are glad to have you join us today. Now, as we continue, the European Union lawmakers greenlit a comprehensive overhaul of the bloc's migration laws, aiming to resolve the years of discord over managing unauthorized entities and neutralizing the far rights, exploiting the issue in an upcoming elections. The European Parliament endorsed the Pact on Migration and Asylum in a series of decisive votes, addressing the contentious matters like responsibility, sharing for migrants, and the mutual among the EU nations. Despite disruptions from the protesters in the galaxy, the Parliament pressed forward, setting the stage for the 27 EU members to ratify the reforms, likely in the late 27th vote, before they could even be implemented. Let's get the details. Despite the controversy, European Parliament President Roberta Metsola hailed the moment as historic, emphasizing the balance achieved between solidarity and responsibility. German Interior Minister Nancy Faeser echoed the sentiment, calling it as an outcome of significant success after years of challenging negotiations. This plan comes in response to the migrant crisis of 2015, when over 1.
Favor of a package that provides for a robust legislative framework that is the same in all member states, that puts humanity first, that understands all the different, difficult aspects of this issue, that secures Europe's external borders, that provides clarity on applicable rules, that ensures the right balance between solidarity and responsibility in full respect of fundamental rights. Migration is a European challenge which must be met with a European solution, one that is effective and both fair and firm. And this is what the Pact on Migration and Asylum delivers. It will be making a real difference for all Europeans. First, more secure European borders, knowing exactly who crosses.
Now let's check why Moderna is being suspended from Kenya. As the US pharmaceutical and biotechnology firm, that is Moderna, suspended its efforts to build an mRNA manufacturing facility that is in Kenya, according to the firm's statement on Thursday. The company highlighted on the demand in Africa for COVID-19 vaccines declining since the pandemic and was insufficient to support the viability of the factory plant in Kenya. According to the statement, Moderna has not received any vaccine orders for the continent since 2022 and has faced a cancellation of previous orders, resulting in more than $1 billion in losses and a rewrite of the downs. And as we continue, in Kenya, the agricultural landscape has been evolving with farmers facing increased challenges posed by the climate change. But amidst these challenges, a beacon of hope emerged, and that is the climate seeds. These seeds developed through a pioneering collaboration between Kenya and the Agricultural and the Livestock Research Organization, that is CALO, and the Alliance of Biodiversity International, CIAT, presently representing a new dawn for the agriculture in Kenya. Kenya's diverse climatic situation presents unique challenges, from arid lowlands to cold, dry highlands. But with the introduction of the climatic smart beans, like Nyota, meaning star in Kiswahili, farmers are now finding new hope.
We developed bean varieties that are climate smart by using varieties that are drought and heat tolerant. They have no fragrance and they have high levels of iron and zinc. So by crossing and back crossing those varieties, we came up with a bean variety that is heat and drought tolerant and also cold, that also fits in the cold dry highland.
When we are breeding, we normally take into account the aspect of market, because the cooking time will give us varieties that cook faster, and when they cook faster, they reduce the cost of fuel, like for example gas and firewood, which probably is will reduce the cost of living for the farmers.
Farmers like Benson Gitonga have already adopted the Nyota beans and are seeing remarkable increases in its yields and profitability.
I can harvest 9 to 12 bags from an acre of land, unlike other varieties where I would only get 5 to 7 bags. The difference upon comparison is substantial. When I bring beans to the market, they consistently fetch a good price, selling for 200 Kenya shillings per kilogram, while other varieties often go for 100 shillings a kilo.
The legislation limiting farmers' access to indigenous seeds currently perpetuates dependency on commercially owned seeds, keeping farmers in a cycle of debt.
Most of these improved seeds that we see, they usually get their primary planting genetic resources from these indigenous seeds. So they go back to our seeds, they take our seeds, and then they go to the lab and do whatever they do themselves, and then they sell back these seeds to the farmers. And then you find that at the end of the day, farmers have to be buying these seeds every season, because they can't replant the seeds. So they have to keep on buying seeds every new season, and that is keeping farmers in a cycle of debt.
Despite challenges and criticisms, proponents of climate-smart seeds believe that innovation in breeding resilient varieties is crucial for safeguarding food security in the face of climate change. Through collaboration between scientists, farmers and policymakers, with initiatives like the Nyota beans. Well, that's a big up for Kenya. Now we are going to focus on mental issues. It looks like economy has brought a big toll on many pertaining the mental health. And today we are going to focus on Nigeria's mental health crisis, that is Africa's most populous nation and grappling with the soaring inflation of a plummeting currency and surge in poverty amidst the backdrop of a severe economic challenges in Nigeria. A nation in the throes of its worst economic crisis in decades is witnessing a concerning rise in poverty levels, according to the World Bank. Nigeria Development Update report through the number of the improvised Nigeria surging from 89.8 million to 1.04 million since the beginning of 2023. The free fall of the naira and the skyrocketing cost of the living are primarily to blame for the inflation reaching to a staggering, that is 31.70% in February 2024. Here is more on the same. Experts like Ayodeji Michael Oni are sounding the alarm, highlighting on the profound impact of these economic hardships on the nation's mental well-being. Oni stressed on the urgent need of the increased awareness and advocacy to address the growing mental health crisis in Nigeria.
The economic situation of the country, is tearing a lot of people apart. But I can tell you categorically that somebody that is mentally stable will not break down totally. What do I mean? A woman that is being abused from home, the husband is abusing her domestically, the same woman gets on the bus and conductor is harassing her and everything. If you see that kind of woman shout and have an outburst, it is not just because of the conductor. There are a lot of underlying factors. So someone that is angry before, something that happens, there's a trigger.
Despite the prevailing stigma, innovative solutions are emerging. Esther Eruchie, founder of the Friend and Pal, discussed how technology has revolutionized mental health care in Nigeria through Kayode Adesina, Chief Technology Officer at the Friend and Pal, elaborating on the platform's features and its impact on the mental health awareness.
A lot of people don't realize that the mental health is as important as your physical health. And so this leaves us to poor financing when it comes to mental health care in Nigeria at the moment. So what we're looking at from the government is, aside from the advocacy and also the policies, we're also looking at financing, actually being able to finance these mental health initiatives and platforms like ourselves who are changing lives across Nigeria at the moment. Currently in Nigeria, we've been able to impact over 100 boys who are drug addicts in Nigeria with our platform, Friend and Pal.
Our platform is anonymous. Also, we have the AI chatbot, mental health companion AI chatbot, right, that you can converse with 24/7, right, share your issues with, and you can also converse with it in multiple African languages. There's the virtual therapy sessions where you can have therapy sessions with our therapist without having to leave your house. You understand? It's just as simple as taking your phone, making payment for a session, and then pick it there, and you're free to have a session with the therapist.
While technological advancements like Friend and Pal are improving access to mental health services, experts emphasize on the crucial role of the government intervention. Esther Eruchie called on the policymakers to prioritize financing mental health initiatives and to address the pressing needs of the estimated 40 million Nigerians who are affected by mental illness. As Nigeria grapples with the economic turmoil. And that news brings us to the end of our Ambassador GBS Global News. It's been a pleasure having you on board, joining us to the end. And just to do a recap for you, we've talked about the Russian military trainers who arrived in Niger on Saturday, at the same nation that was protesting against the U.S. military, widening the controversy. We've also talked about Sudan that worked 1 year in war with more than 10 million Sudanese children exposed to war zones, not forgetting the impacts including the refugees and the lack of food and the necessities. We'll keep you updated on more on the same. And we've also talked about Iran, which launched unprecedented retaliatory strikes on Israel, as it had promised to strike back after the attack on its consulates. We'll keep you more updated on the same. We've also talked about the EU Parliament that approved the new migration asylum, an issue that has been happening between Rwanda and the EU for quite a long time. We are going to keep a track of all of this and keep you updated on all the same continuously as you keep locked with us. I've been your ambassador, Jennifer Macau, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the GBS Global News, The Ambassador, tomorrow, same time, same place, from Monday to Friday at 1 p.m. And may you all have a splendid and the most beautiful afternoon.
Everywhere. GBS.